Well, hello there everyone, my name is Amy, this is The Opinionated Woman, and welcome to Crafty Reads, a series where I craft something and we talk about the last 5 books that I've read. At the moment, I am still working on this purple sweater, so let me show you how far I got. So, this is how it's looking so far. I've done the back panel, both sleeves, and this beautiful front panel with this hand-dyed yarn. And I put it on because this is like the biggest tip that I can give you is when you're making clothes for yourself, please put it on throughout the process so that you don't waste your time. So I put it on and my sibling was like, is that too small on the sides? And I looked. I got a lot of chunk here. It's way too small on the sides. So I'm making panels that are going up the sides here because I'm not a fuck redoing this. And also like it would make it too wide in the shoulders. I'm wider here, I'm smaller here, obviously. So I'm putting in a panel to do the side chunk, and then I'm going to put panels in the arms as well to make it nice and baggy, because who wants a tight fitting sweater? No, 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 no. So that is what I'm working on here. Here's my side panel, this is the second one I've done, and I will be marking off row by row. So if you see me going like every time I finish a row going to my notebook, it's because I'm noting down how many rows, because I need 69 rows to match the other panel that I've done. So without further ado, let's get into the books. The first book I read was Rose Rivers by Jacqueline Wilson, and I'm just going to put this here, but you can't really see the title or anything on the cover. Oh, let me move this back a bit. Because it's this special edition hardcover. But anyway, this is Rose Rivers by Jacqueline Wilson. I absolutely love Jacqueline Wilson. I hardly ever read middle grade, but when I do read middle grade, it's Jacqueline Wilson. And I found this in a secondhand store, like a charity shop in the UK, and it's got a signed book plate as well. Ah, nice. So I had to pick it up. This is one of her historical fictions where she's following a Victorian child. This particular child is from quite a well-to-do family. Her name is Rose, obviously. And she's really kind of battling with the position that women are given in her world. Her twin brother has been sent off to school, and there's nothing more that she would like than to go to school and to learn and to expand her horizons. But because she's a girl, they have kept her at home and they don't want to educate her. They keep on trying to send her on things like trying to go on horse riding lessons with another well-to-do family, which she's really not happy with and ends up falling off the horse. She likes drawing, but she likes doing cartoony type drawing. So her artist father, who she loves, sort of doesn't really understand her or take her art seriously because it's not high art like he does. Even though she is encouraged to carry on with this artwork by her father's friend, who she's absolutely besotted with, just in the way that little girls become besotted with fully grown men. You know, they don't really understand their feelings. But she doesn't have a very close relationship with her mother. She's got a lot of brothers and sisters. And as the story is mainly focused on her trying to make her way in the world and trying to fight for more of a place in the world than people want to give her as a girl, she's also very focused on the fact that her one sister, who's disabled, has a nurse that's looking after her. And this nurse, everyone speaks very highly of, and she is very suspicious of her and doesn't think that she is actually looking after her sister in the way that she should be. So that's kind of like a sinister undertone that happens. And she ends up making friends with a girl who comes to work in the house, who is actually the main character of another one of Jacqueline Wilson's stories. Can't for the life of me remember her name right now, but maybe I won't say that to not spoil it. But yeah, I haven't actually read that one yet, so it would be Clover Moon. Her name is Clover Moon. So it would be nice for me to go back to read Clover Moon and find out her backstory, because they create a very firm friendship, even though they're not technically supposed to because of their rank. But as usual, this was a wonderful Jacqueline Wilson. It delivered exactly what I wanted from a Jacqueline Wilson, and I will obviously keep on reading from her over and over again. Then I read I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. I've wanted to read this book for the longest time. I don't know why it's taken me so long to pick up. And we're following our main character, Ben, who is a non-binary kid. And right at the beginning of the story, Ben is just about to come out to their parents. And it doesn't go well. They end up getting chucked out, and they call their sister, their big sister, who they've been estranged from for like 10 years. And she comes to fetch them, and they start living with her and going to school. And she puts them in therapy, which they've never gone to before. And in this new life, Ben starts to be able to like express themselves a little bit more. They have more freedom in their life with their sister in charge of them, and they start to like reestablish that relationship that they had with their sister before she left, because she left because of issues with their parents as well, because their parents are very authoritarian, and yeah, their father is a really horrible person. And when they start at their new school, they get paired with this kid called Nathan to show them around the school and things like that. And Nathan is like a sunshiny kind of boy. Like he really is like a sunshine type of character. And Ben is really not sure about him, and they're very guarded because obviously their coming out didn't go well when it came to their parents. So they're very scared to like show themselves to these new people around them, even though they are getting help through this with their new therapist and things like that. And the main focus of the story is them coming to terms with their gender, realizing who they can trust, establishing new relationships, and this burgeoning relationship that is growing with Nathan that is very sweet. And the conclusion of the story is absolutely wonderful. It's got like a side to it that would be kind of doom and gloom if it wasn't handled so well, and it makes me think that maybe Mason Deaver has experience in these kind of parental relationships, because the way that they explore like how this turns out is very delicately handled, but at the same time kind of realistic, but not in the way where it would make a non-binary child feel like scared to have the same thing happen to them. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well. It's just very delicately handled, and you can tell that this is a non-binary author writing this non-binary character, because it's like, that's why Own Voices is so important, because I don't think this would have been handled so delicately if it was handled by a cis author or an author who hadn't experienced these things themselves. And it lived up to all of the hype that I had given it, and I'm very glad I finally got to it. Then I read Small Things Like These by Keegan. This is very audiobook heavy Crafty reads. My mom told me to read this one because she'd read it and really enjoyed it, and I have the same issue with this that I did with the first Keegan that I read, which was Foster, is that it's too damn short. This is like a 2-hour audiobook. It's like only like a couple of 100 pages as a physical read, and it's a beautifully established story. We're following our main character whose name I can't freaking remember, but he sells the coal and wood to the community in this small Irish town, and he has a wife and 5 daughters of different ages. And one of his clients is a what is it called? A convent. A convent, or like a home for wayward girls, like some kind of combination of the two. And he goes to fill the coal shed the one day, and he finds one of the girls in there. and he ends up helping her. And the thing is, that is a great establishment for me to get into a whole big long story about this girl and her relationship to this new family, and how that relationship progresses. But the story stops there. So it's beautifully written. The setting is so well done. The like establishment in the little Irish village is absolutely wonderful. Her writing is gorgeous. But I wanted to know what happened after that. So I really want this author to write a proper longer novel and not just novellas, so that I can really get stuck into her characters and to her storytelling, because I think she's very talented, and I just wish that it jibed a little bit more with my personal reading taste. Not my reading taste, but my reading preferences. I read The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki, and this is such a hard book to describe. It is a literary fiction, and it's following our main character Benny, who he loses his father when he's around 13. And him and his mother are devastated. It's like a freak accident. And very soon after this happens, Ben starts hearing voices. He starts hearing inanimate objects speaking. Like, for instance, he is at school and a bird flies into the window and it dies, and he hears the glass crying because the glass didn't mean to kill the bird. So as you can imagine, that's a very, very overwhelming environment, and he finds it very, very hard to incorporate himself into the school, and he spends a lot of time bunking off of school and going to the library where everything is quiet, and he doesn't have to put on his headphones to like block out all of the different objects that are trying to make themselves heard to him. But at the same time, his mother is really struggling because she's obviously lost her husband. She's not doing so well, but she, on the other hand, has like a bit of a hoarding issue. She works from home and she has to keep an archive, and she doesn't keep the archive very well organized. So it sort of starts to take over the house. So this poor boy, who is inundated with the voices of inanimate objects, comes home to a house that is absolutely cluttered and full of things that are speaking to him. And he finds it very overwhelming, and he keeps on running away. And he finds solace after going to a psych hospital for a little while in a girl called the Aleph, and a man called Slavoj, who they also call the Bottle Man. He's a homeless man who is a poet from a Eastern European country, I think Slovakia. And he sort of goes off on ill-advised adventures with this sort of ragtag group of misfits, because his home life is quite difficult. And we follow both of him and his mother, and them both trying to find their footing and establish themselves some kind of normality in both of their lives with the different battles that they're having. And it's a lot to do with inanimate objects and our attachment to them, and about grief. And the way that it's told is very, very interesting. So we get the story that's been told to us, and then every now and again we get Benny interjecting and making commentary on what we've just heard from the story, and then we'll go back into the narrative, and the book that's telling us the story will address Benny directly about the qualms that he had with the story being told, and then it'll go back into the story. So this whole time Benny is having a conversation with the book that's telling us the story, which is really interesting. And then at one stage he is blocking the book out, and it starts to talk to him directly, so in the second person. So this book changes up between Benny speaking in the first person, the book speaking in the third person, and then the book spending some portions of this speaking in the second person. And it's freaking masterfully handled. Like, I couldn't believe like how well this book was put together, because like this could have been an absolute disaster if the wrong author did it. So now this was my first foray into Ruth Ozeki, and now I know that she is an author that I'm going to go back to again and again because this bitch knows how to write. And the last book I read was Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi. If you've been here for any length of time, you know that I'm an Akwaeke Emezi fangirl. And this is one of their YA books. It's actually the prequel to their story Pet. And it's actually following the main character from Pet's mother. So that's Bitter. And Bitter is living at an art school that they go into, and they have this skill where they can call things out of their drawings. So like there's a scene where they just draw like a little cute little winged creature, and they prick their finger and put a drop of blood onto it, and they call this creature out, and it just happily flies around their room for a little bit and then disappears after a few hours. So it's seen as like something that's quite harmless, and but nobody really knows about it. She's just there for her artistic skill, but at the same time there is a lot of political upheaval happening in Lucille, which is the town where she lives. There's a lot of tension between the people and the greedy people who are like running it, and like in almost like a dictatorial kind of way, where like the people in charge are taking all of the wealth, and it's not going back into the community at all. And there's a group called Asada, who is like a political group that are organizing protests and things like that against the powers that be. And Bitter is very determined not to get involved in that. Like she really wants to shut that out. But when one of her friends gets hurt, she sort of is in a really emotional state, and she feels powerless, and she decides that she's going to do something. And she paints this very large entity on a huge canvas and pours a cup of her blood over the painting, and she calls up an angel. And she realizes that she's actually bitten off a little bit more than she can chew, and things devolve from there. I don't want to tell you anything else because it would absolutely destroy it, but Akwaeke Emezi is so skilled, and the way that they jump from different genres, because like this is one of their YAs. The last book I read of theirs was their memoir, and they all stand on their own. I've read romances from them. I've read contemporaries from them. The way they handle all of these things is so beautiful, because this is also like a fantasy element. And they just handle it with absolute delicacy, even though they say that it's like one of the hardest books they've ever had to write. It was just really well done, to the point where I was giving my sibling like blow by blow accounts of what was happening in the story as I read it, when we were driving to and from the dog park. The story really stuck with me that much. And just this writer is, if you haven't read Akwaeke Emezi yet, use this as your sign. Please, for the love of God, pick up any of their books, because they are an author not to be missed. Okay, I've done a couple of rows of this. This has actually gone a lot quicker. The last Crafty reads that I did, I was like, I'm only going to speak about 4 books because the one was on the block list for the St. Martin's Press boycott. And I ended up yapping for half an hour. But on this one, I think I've managed to keep it a little bit more tight-sewed. If you want to see my crochet creations, I now have a crochet business, Real Gay Crochet. It'll always be linked down below, along with my social media and my Kofi link, which is a one-time tip jar if you ever want to support my channel. But other than that, like, comment, subscribe, all of that fun stuff, and I'll check you next time.